Okay, this is part 3, Ray. We're at part 3 of the definitive Ray Lamont interview. Ray's the editor of the Gloucester Daily Times.
This isn't going to be a 10-part series.
No, let's hope not, Ray. Although it could be, because you're an interesting guy. So, what I want to talk about in this segment is about the Gloucester Times and how it fits in. Because at one time, the Gloucester Times was its own business, I imagine.
Right.
And now it is a part of a larger media group, the Eagle Tribune.
Well, we're actually part of, we have an affiliation with the Eagle Tribune, but we are part of the Eagle Tribune in North Andover, the Salem News, the Daily News of Newburyport, and the Gloucester Daily Times are all part of the North of Boston Media Group, which is a part of Community Newspaper Holdings, Inc., which is based in Birmingham, Alabama. They have hundreds of community newspapers and other media across the country. Now, all of that said, we are 100% a local newspaper. In June of 2008, June and July of 2008, at one time, when I first came here, all the news reporting and all the story ideas and all the editorial ideas and so forth were coordinated right from the Gloucester Daily Times. But at one point, the editing of the paper, to some extent, the copy editing, the headlines, and the actual pages were actually done from a centralized desk in North Andover.
And
that's not the case anymore at all. Indeed, we've added some people onto our staff who are page designers, copy editors, and all of the news coverage, all of the editorials, all of the pages, all the photography, everything is coordinated and based. It's decentralized. We're very much independent. It's all based right at the Times on Whittemore Street, and that's where all the work is done. The only thing that we don't do is actually print it. We don't have a printing press there anymore. It's actually printed. It's shipped electronically every night to the production department in North Andover. It's actually printed in North Andover and then delivered back here. But everything, all the input, all the coordination is all handled locally at the Times.
Wow. And when did when did it get back to that?
That was in June, July, crossover between June and July of 2008. A number of aspects of it were decentralized, and everybody is very much their own newspaper.
So what benefits does the Times get as being, part of that organization, but still having the, being independent?
Well, we can share some stories. There are still electronic links where we can share a story. We don't do it a whole lot, but one example, Salem News, for instance, regularly covers the Salem court news. So if there is a case, if we're doing court reports from Gloucester District Court, and other people are doing Gloucester Police, if there is a case at the same time going on at Salem District Court or at Salem, or at Superior Court, we can pick up their story quickly electronically to be able to do that. We would also often add some local input to that as well. But again, that would be the big benefit editorially. There are also some advertising connections. I know people can advertise, can buy advertising that crosses over into all the papers theoretically. But advertising's not. That's not my field. I don't really know exactly how that works sometimes. But it's all. But we're very much local newspaper. Everything coordinated right here in Gloucester.
Okay, this is a fun part. Ray, I'm going to name some names of the writers and editors and photo people, and I'd like you to talk a little bit about them individually and what they bring to the Times. We're going to start out with a guy who probably, and if he doesn't get some kind of national recognition for journalism, there should be an investigation. Richard Gaines and his coverage of the fishing industry why don't you talk about Richard? What he means to you, too, personally, too.
Well, Richard is just an incredible. First of all, he's had an incredible career in journalism, dating to when he covered the State House for UPI. He's covered politics. He's covered a lot of different things. He was editor of the Boston Phoenix, at one time. He has literally written a book on Mike Dukakis. So to have someone like that on staff just brings an enormous just wealth of experience. Nothing phases him. He's not afraid to tackle any story, which is a big thing sometimes for young people in the field occasionally. And he just has this not only a wealth of information built up inside his head, but he also has this enormous passion for his craft. We haven't talked about this, but I'll bet that if I asked Richard this, he would consider journalism and what he does a craft. And that's absolutely what he does. He doesn't just report on stories. He tells it from the eyes of the people he's interviewing, the people he's dealing with, and he's just an amazing resource, especially for a paper our size.
He wasn't originally covering the waterfront. When was this something that he came to you, or was this something you came to him? How did it come to be that
Well, when
Richard
I came
Gaines
on,
got involved with
right
to the extent that
well, when I first came on board, we were looking, and I think it's always good to look at the beat structure of a paper, and our beats were all assigned by cities and towns. We had, and Richard was basically the Gloucester City Hall, Gloucester City reporter. And Al White, who had been the interim editor at the Times right before I came on board, he and I were talking, and I was asking him, would he do anything different with the beat structure? Al is now the editor at the Eagle Tribune, North Andover, by the way, too. He said that if he were looking to do anything different, he might have somebody on a beat focusing on the harbor front. So we got together. I got together with staff one of the first weeks that I was there to hear if they had any idea of any beats or anything like that. And I raised the idea, that Al had given me about talking about setting up a beat covering the harbor front. The interesting thing is we were at that point thinking of it as covering the fishing industry as part of the harbor front. Because really at that time the city was embarking on a new harbor plan. There are, as there always are, a lot of controversies about the use of properties along the waterfront and so forth. That's one that's never going to go away, right? It's never going to be answered. It's never going to go away.
Yeah.
And Richard stood up and said, I would love to do that. And he has dug into this with an absolute passion and conviction for, again, getting out the news about what's going on. He's done it in a great, fair coverage. What I've been really proud of is he's gotten too many times it seemed over the years that not only a lot of news stories, but a lot of what's going on has included a lot of officials, and it's included people from different lobbies. And lost in all this is the voice of the fishermen, and the voice of the fishing industry. And Richard has I think brought all sides to the table, getting out the word, the good, the bad, and the ugly, as to what's happening with and to our fishing industry as it's as in dealing with government regulations and so forth. He continues to do an absolutely amazing job, and he's the kind of passionate journalist that a lot of papers our size don't really have the luxury to have.
Okay, well that is part 3. Ray, we did it.
It is going to be 10.